This week, Kumar and Dana discuss Taiyo Matsumoto's table tennis manga, Pong. It's a sports manga, but seems to almost be a parody of that genre, and it's enjoyably unpredictable in a number of ways. First, if you're enjoying this podcast, we'd love it if you'd support the show at patreon.com/deconcomics for as little as $2 a month. All patrons get our bi-weekly videos featuring 20th century TV trivia quizzes. More perks and bonus content at higher donation levels, including discussions of MCU movies and Lee Ditko Spider-Man stories. And help us meet our goals to unlock the earliest episodes of our podcast and put them all back in the feed. Pledge your support now at patreon.com/deconcomics.
This is Kumar.
This is Dana.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Kumar in Melbourne, Dana in Fredericton, in Canada. We're here to talk about Taiyo Matsumoto's Pong today. It came out originally in Japan in the mid-90s. Was only published in English this year. Earlier this year, or maybe last year, I can't remember which. It's not his most famous book. His most famous is Tekken Kincrete, also known as Black and White in English. Which was his breakout thing. I haven't read that. I haven't read anything else by him.
Yeah, either.
But when the movie of Pong came out in 2002, we watched that together. I bought the DVD of it. Yeah, 2002. So this is a...
I don't remember that.
Imagine saying... I was also thinking about the craziness of saying we watched this in 2000. That would be like if this was 1991 and I said, remember that movie we watched in 1972?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay. Remember that 8-track cassette we listened to? Anyway,
yeah,
I bought the DVD of this thing, and I remember you came over, we watched it, it was really cool. I wasn't sure if you would remember or not. It was a very long time ago.
I remember the movie, but I don't remember ever having seen the movie. I thought I had seen trailers of it or something. I knew there was a movie, and I knew it had come out around that time.
Right.
So, wow, I've actually seen it. There you go. Yeah.
You have seen it. And I rewatched it again. And so I bought the manga. I heard it was good. It's finally come out, 25 years after its initial release in English. Yeah. I read it. I loved it. And then I almost canceled this episode because I wasn't really sure what to say about it after a first reading of it. I was like, wow, I really enjoyed this, but I don't know what to talk about for an hour. And then you talked me down from that cliff. And I'm really glad.
Or I talked you back up onto the cliff, maybe.
But I'm really glad because I read it a second time, and the second time I really fucking loved this comic.
I also had the same experience in that I loved it even more.
Yeah, more the second time. I don't know why. I think maybe the first time I was kind of trying to keep track of who the characters were and that kind of stuff maybe, and just wasn't letting myself just be absorbed by it. I don't know what it was, but this time it really, really hit me hard. And maybe it was also because there's so much that dazzles you in it. And maybe the first time I was a little bit like kind of on pins and needles, if that's the right way to put it. Holy cow, I can't believe he's drawn this way, or this is happening, or that. And this time it just like, I don't know, it just washed over me in a really rapid, enjoyable way, and not just with the presentation of it or the cartooning, but also the characters and everything. I was kind of richer the second time around. And I loved it the first time. I really did, but the second time was like, holy cow, this comic is really amazing. And
I think my experience or my response that second time through was more like there's actually, I think, a lot here to think about and ponder when you're reading. It's not just a kind of surface level story. So and I think that's partly why it's worth talking about. Not that we're gonna, exhaust all of the depths of the story, and not to oversell it, but yeah, I think there's more there than just, as you said, great cartooning and a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like a Japanese sports manga sometimes. I think this one, there's an interesting afterword by the editor in this edition where he talks about how they basically, after Tekken Kinkuri came out, they basically tricked Matsumoto into doing something more commercial. They kind of tricked him into doing a sports manga so they would have a more mainstream thing.
Okay.
And despite he kind of in the afterward he talks about it like it's just a sports manga, but I actually think it's almost a parody of sports manga.
Okay.
In some way, I think he's almost. It doesn't really function like other sports manga in so many ways. I think we have to go into all the details of it. And maybe all this stuff will kind of come out as we're going along. But, okay, so basically it's about, it's called Ping Pong.
Yeah.
You know what it's about.
Yeah.
But really amazingly, and I think this may be true of other sports manga as well, and but it is one of the things that I think makes it a bit almost a satire of sports manga. Is it's not even that we see two major tournaments in it, and a few side games, but it's basically this high school. So it's not pro ping pong. It's not university level ping pong. It's high school level ping pong. It's not even in Tokyo. It's out in maybe in Kanagawa or something like that. I don't remember where. So it's regional ping pong, a regional high school. And then these two tournaments, I think the first one is not even the finals. It's like the trials or the qualifiers.
Yeah, I feel it's it's like a qualifying tournament or something.
Yeah, and maybe even the final, like the big finale. So it's not even, so it's not college ping pong. It's not Tokyo ping pong. It's not even the finals. It's just like qualifiers. And we've got 1,000 pages of comics here, 2 volumes, 500 pages each. Probably takes about 2 to 3 hours to read each one. And one of the side matches is between this hotshot kid and a 62-year-old coach, which is why I kind of feel like Japanese sports manga does sometimes really focus in on the drama of very small, like junior high teams or something like that, and he does that here. But it's almost the level of drama surrounding these matches, including this match with this old man, which is I think 70 pages or something like that.
Probably, yeah.
Is intense. It's super intense. It's laser focused, but it's such a. If you were outside looking in, you're like, imagine some junior high school or high school 3,000 miles away from you playing qualifying ping pong tournament. Like, how much does that affect your life?
Yeah.
Nothing. So to me, that's what's really, that's kind of why I thought he was almost making fun of the genre, is how removed it is from anything quote unquote important. I mean, we just came out of the Olympics. Which even to me was like, this is ridiculous. None of this matters. And this is even further away than that.
Well, I know that sports manga exists, but I don't have any other exposure to it beyond, maybe I've heard of some of them. And this is the only one I've ever actually read. And I think that, I agree with what you're saying, that the actual level of what this table tennis sort of it's high school. It's not even like national tournaments or whatever. But that said, I think everything in terms of the story about what's going on with the characters is really so kind of, I don't know, earnest or sincere or whatever. Like I didn't pick up on any kind of satirical elements,
right?
But that might just be because I don't have any exposure really to the genre, and I don't have any real meaningful exposure to the genre. So for me, this reads completely straight.
Yes, and that's 100% valid because it is completely straight in terms of. I mean, I watching the movie again last night. It was so funny. Like almost every line in there is hilarious.
Yeah.
And that's not really what the manga's like. The manga's really full on, very strongly felt emotions. We should talk about these characters. So it basically focuses on these 5 kids. They're very clearly delineated. So I would say maybe the 2 more main ones are a kid called Peko and a kid called Smile. Those are their nicknames. Almost everybody goes by a nickname. So of the 5, they all have nicknames. So Peko is he is the best. As in the opening chapters, he grew up. His childhood friend is Smile. They're both ping pong players, but Peko is far and away. I think they say straight out like Tsukimoto. Smile is no match for him.
And he teaches Smile how to play.
That's right. That's right. Since they were little kids.
And everybody looks up to him. He's the cool kid. He's the
the hero, which is this theme that comes back. He's the hero to the others, including some of the rival players. But mostly he's skipping school practice with the school team, and he hangs out at this dojo called Tamura, which is run which is run by this old granny. And then we've got Smile. Smile is he's also really great. He seems to be losing. When he loses games, he's throwing games, but not consciously. Like, he doesn't want to make people feel bad. And his thing is, he says, I'm not smiling, I'm not laughing, I'm just here. They call him Smile because he never smiles. And he says, I don't smile, I don't laugh, I'm just here. And he gets some line about, amazing line from a 17 or 16-year-old, which is, we're all just killing time until we die.
They're first year, so that's going to be 15 or 16.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he's in grade 10. And his thing is, it's just, ping pong is just a way to kill time. He doesn't really care about winning. He doesn't want to make people feel bad. So he may be kind of letting people, especially Smile, maybe letting people beat him if he feels like they're going to feel really bad. And Peko has a habit of crying when he loses. Yeah. Okay, then we've got this rival school called KO, aka Neptune. This is another thing which made me feel there's kind of satirical elements, which is all the kids in this school have shaved heads and shaved eyebrows. And they come in and they look like something out of Mad Max whenever they walk onto the page, because they're all dressed the same. They're all bald, whatever.
I think it's part of just like making them intimidating. That was kind of how I saw that. But it is a little bit over the top. Like Karate Kid. What was the dojo or Cobra Kai?
Yeah, it's over the top, and it's more like it's almost. There are some elements of this that take place in a kind of fantastic, and it's not just because of the way it's drawn. Well, it is the way it's drawn, but it's almost magic realism. I don't know if any school out there in Japan, actually, some regional high school, the team all shaves their heads. Yeah. Is it possible? Yes, I guess it's possible, but it just seemed like it was part of the drama of this.
It's a very militaristic, like their coach. It's always like, sir, yes, sir. Like they're very, very militaristic. So it kind of goes hand in hand there. It's all that part of the characterization of that school's team, I guess.
Right.
So you've got Dragon, right? Who's the I guess he's the captain, or he's certainly the top player. He's not. He's a
top player anywhere. He's unbeatable. Including by Peko and Smile. He's like the guy that's going to win.
Yeah.
As much as we focus on Smile and Peko, amazingly they don't beat Kazama. You think Kazama is Dragon. That's his real name. You think it's going to be about them they're going to make their way to the top or something like that, but it's not really like that. At the end of the first tournament, he's the winner, and we don't even see that, his winning match or whatever. Yeah. Which is another thing we'll talk about, is the amount of matches we don't see. It's really pretty funny. And then the other player there is a guy who goes by the nickname of Demon, who also grew up with Peko and Smile. And I think Dragon beat Smile in junior high. Was it him or was it Demon? Anyway.
Oh, you mean... Sorry.
Somebody beat Smile in junior high. I can't remember if it was Dragon or Demon. One of those guys did, and it was kind of a big deal.
You mean Pecco?
Maybe.
Or they beat Smile.
Anyway.
Yeah, that. Yeah, so it's that kid. But also, don't forget China.
Right, okay, he's number 5.
Yeah.
So this school called Sujido, which is not important because the rest of their team members are just ignored in the comic, basically. They bring in this ringer from China, and he is lost in China, and he has come over to Japan, and as far as he's concerned, he's slumming it. As soon as he arrives, he's like, I wish I'd gone to Germany or Sweden instead. And the team at the school are losers, but they basically hired him in to win games. And he's a deadly player as well, and he's a real threat. And there's almost Chinese stereotype. Like as soon as Pecco hears that they're bringing in someone from China, he's like, oh shit, we're gonna get our asses kicked. And they call him China. His name is Wenge Kong. But they call him China throughout, and there's all sorts of people are throwing jokes at him about kung fu and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, we have these and they're quite interesting because Dragon is. There's always a question of is he playing for the team or for himself, and there's a really interesting scene at the very end of the book where Demon asks him, "Who do you play for?" and he says, "I play for myself."
So they're in the bathroom, and it's only those two.
Yeah.
And who do you play for? Myself, of course. And Demon's like, of course you would say that.
Yeah.
And then 5 pages later, Dragon is out of the bathroom, and he's talking to his team. And he has the same... Or who is it that asks him?
I can't remember. Somebody asked him, or they say, what did he ask you? And Demon asked me who I played for. And they say, what did you say? I said I played for the team.
Yeah, and then the teammate responds with the same line that Demon responded. Oh, of course you would say that. So it's kind of neat that he's wearing that mask for his team.
Yeah, that's part of his thing. Much like another thing is Pecco acts like he's cool and collected, but as soon as he's out of sight of the other players, he's sweating and freaking out. Meanwhile,
and he cries every time he loses.
Meanwhile, Smile is he actually has no pressure on him. He doesn't really care. He's there to kill time, as he says.
Well, I think he says explicitly, he does have that line about killing time, but he also says that he wants to play for fun. For him, it's about enjoying the game.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a big, maybe one of the major tentpole themes of the book is why play sport?
Yes.
And not even just table tennis, but why play sports at all?
Yeah. Well,
and there's a lot of different answers to that. Which
yes.
Is kind of neat.
And I want to interject one line, which is another thing that reminded me, is there's a very intense game or something happens, I can't remember what it was, and the granny from Tamura says, that's ping pong for you. And that line, as if ping pong was the most dramatic sport there is. No other sports have this kind of drama in them. Was fun. Everything is elevated to this huge level. Was really funny to me. So you're very right about and it's really interesting too, because again, in that afterword by the editor, he says, who do you think the genius of ping pong is in this series? And his answer is it's Pecco, because spoiler, Pecco wins the final match in the end. Then he goes on to become a pro in Germany. And he also says that Smile is also a genius, but Smile did not throw the final match. So the final game is between Pecco and Smile. And we don't get to see the very end of it, but we learn from a 5 years later scene, the epilogue, that Pecco won that.
Yeah.
And
there's a photo of the podium.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, I don't even think there's not even a line. It's just there's nobody says Pecco won. Now, obviously, we do get that.
No, I think there might be a discussion because we do see him playing in Germany as well.
Yeah, we see that he's actually succeeded.
Maybe, I can't remember if they actually say he did or... Because Dragon comes in...
Yeah, the 5 years later part.
Yeah, anyway. And when the editor said that, I actually wondered if that was correct, because there's so much going on here. So the coach of the Katase High School team, which is the team which Smile and Peko are on, is named Koizumi.
Yeah.
Back 40 years ago, he was the best player in the country, maybe, and his nickname was Butterfly Joe.
Yeah.
Butterfly Joe. Now, but when he was back then, the reason he lost is because he had a friend. He played a guy who we always played against who had a bum knee. And if he had won against that guy, it would have ruined that guy's career, basically. So he threw the game. And when he relates this story to Smile, Smile says, "You threw the game." And he says, Koizumi says, "Well, what would you have done against a guy with a bad knee?" We get to the final match, and it's Peko's got a bad knee.
Yeah.
And we get an off the court scene between Koizumi and Grandma Tamura, where he says, "You got to get him to a hospital as soon as this match is over." And she's like, "Yeah." So it's that bad. And it's really like, wait a second, we had this scene 700 pages earlier with this conversation, and we know that Smile throws games unconsciously. Maybe by the end, his attitude towards, I think, ping pong has changed a bit towards the end.
I absolutely changed a lot. I think that's all part of Koizumi's training.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he trains him very hard, and he does come in
to the extent that he's like ignoring the rest of the team, and they're all like complaining about it.
Yes. And in fact, he's like, "Why are we wasting money on newcomers to the team? Get rid of them. There's no point in having rookies."
Smile says that.
Yeah, Smile says that. He's like, "What are we doing?"
Exactly.
And did you get those balls I ordered that I asked you to order? So at the end, I was still kind of like, despite the editor's very clear opinion that that Smile did not throw this game, I was like, I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure either.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting because of, sports movies, comics, they go through a very specific arc. And usually, the hero quits right before the climax because his parent won't let him play basketball, or his knee gets kicked in the karate tournament or something like that. And then there's a dramatic return to the court where the captain is back on the team, and then they have this victory at the end. This is really interesting because Peko, he is the best player pretty much, except he can't beat Dragon at the beginning, but he's basically the best player. After the first tournament, he loses to Demon. He quits. He
also gets beaten by China.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Remember he just goes to the school or whatever, and they play a match. So he basically loses every match we see him play in. Until
and then he quits, and then he has a super hard workout from Grandma for several months. Comes into the tournament. Finally, he wins the tournament. So the best player at the beginning is still kind of the best player at the end, which it's not the underdog thing that we usually see.
Yeah.
It's not Rocky or even Best of the Best or anything like that, where you have these underdogs that somehow train really hard and beat the best players, or the killer team, the evil team at the end.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have that kind of arc either, which was really fascinating to me, especially the second time through. Because the second time I really noticed, oh, wait a second, Peko was like the best at the beginning.
And also the other thing that's kind of neat about the way the whole thing is framed is that if you could say there's like a main character, for me, it was more Smile than Peko.
Yeah, I felt that too.
It's kind of like it is sort of an ensemble. Like the 5 characters you mentioned are kind of, they're all important, but it also, there's like a hierarchy, right? So at the very pinnacle of that hierarchy of characters, it's Smile, but for Smile, and he says this explicitly, Peko is the hero.
Yes.
So that's kind of neat.
Yes.
That the character in the book is telling us that another character who's not the main character of this book is actually the hero.
Yeah.
And he kind of has that sort of almost cliche arc. Not quite, because he's not the underdog, which is kind of more the cliche. But he is victorious in the end. But yeah, it's kind of weird that we're really I hadn't explicitly had the thought until you said it, but Smile he's the natural talent, I guess.
Yes.
And as much as I kind of don't really like that trope or that idea, not trope, I mean, I don't like it as an idea. I'm not entirely convinced that it's even really a thing. But it's something that I heard a lot growing up with, whether it was music or whatever. It's like, oh, you're so talented, da 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 da. It's like, well, yeah, I think people have aptitude, but yeah, in this story, Smile is, I mean, after Koizumi trains the hell out of him for half a year, he's like the Mozart of table tennis.
Yeah.
And you get all these scenes where China or Dragon, they're like watching him play, and it's just like they're kind of like, yeah, he's throwing this game, or whatever reason, like they can see his genius.
Yes.
Even though he's kind of holding it back.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of wonder maybe he threw that final game that we never saw.
Yeah,
but,
I think two things. I want to say, I think the thing about talent is part of the 5 stars of the comic. I think that's
because they all represent kind of a different
combination. Yeah, because Demon, it turns out, when he gets beaten by Smile I think it's, or no, so he gets beaten by Peko in a off game, off court game.
No. That's Smile. That's Smile that him. Yeah. So Demon.
Oh right. Yes. Okay.
So he goes to the other high school, and his school, Neptune Academy, is like, they have a rule.
Right.
If you lose an unofficial game, you're out.
Yeah.
And he goes and he loses.
He loses, and Smile says Demon is so angry. He's like, I've practiced so much more than you, tens of thousands of hours. I've worked harder. And he says, yes, you have worked hard, but you have no natural talent. Yeah. So he's got the...
I hate that line.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
I think Smile had to lose at the end, because if he won, he would have to play ping pong for the rest of his life. He would have to become a pro in Germany. And he had no interest in it. He didn't want that. Even though he had changed from being, I'm just playing to kill time, to a guy that was there to enjoy table tennis by playing the best opponents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's killing time by teaching elementary school kids at the end of the book 5 years later.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to go back, because I actually was just looking at my notes, and I realized I actually wrote down those quotes.
Yeah.
So Smile has so actually China, talking about Smile, says he has zero will to compete. And then Smile says, we're all just killing time until we die. Now, he doesn't say that he's playing ping pong.
That's right.
To kill time.
Exactly.
It's more general than that. It's more. It's this kind of nihilistic view. Where we're all gonna die, but we're all just kind of getting through life, however we can. But then, like 20 pages later, and again, this is a quote from Smile. He says, "I don't want to play table tennis like that, like hardcore."
Yeah.
And he says, making sacrifices just to play.
Yeah.
I want to have a good time.
Yeah.
And so, I think you're right. I think he probably did throw that game, because every time Peko sees Smile play in that second volume, Peko's like, he understands.
Yeah.
Peko recognizes, wait a minute, I've been beating this guy my whole life, but he hasn't been trying.
Yeah.
Or sorry, that's not volume 2. That's in volume 1, because I think that's partly why Peko quits, because he realizes that his victories have kind of been empty, hollow.
Yeah, there is something in volume 2 where he's watching him play in the final tournament, where Peko's watching Smile play, and there's dread in his eyes. I'm going to try to find it. I wrote it in my notes somewhere. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. But anyway, yeah, you can see that he's a bit like he's worried that Smile is gonna win through to the end, and Pecco's gonna have to play him. Himself.
Yeah.
More discussion of Ping Pong in a moment. Don't forget you can help to unlock classic early episodes of Deconstructing Comics. Help me return all the old episodes to this podcast feed, and at the $4 level, get access to hours of additional full-length podcasts. At the $10 level, you can review the book of your choice with me here on this show. Support Deconstructing Comics and our other shows at patreon.com/deconcomics. Or you can send a one-time donation via PayPal to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We appreciate your support.
Welcome to the Superman Fan Podcast. My name is Billy Hogan, and I will be your host. Before we begin our journey through the time barrier, please ensure that your red indestructible capes are securely fastened around your necks so that we may all travel safely into the past to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel in the pages of Action Comics, Superman, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, and World's Finest Comics. After we return from our journey, I encourage you to go to the website, thesupermanfanpodcast.blogspot.com. I look forward to have you join me each week to explore the Silver Age adventures of the Man of Steel.
So anyway, I think we've talked a lot about the I mean, it's not just plot, but I mean kind of how all these things are sort of interacting and the characters and stuff. And yeah, I think we should shift gears before we go too long.
Okay.
About that stuff.
Sure.
I think we kind of hit a little bit on some of the themes of like the different types of players.
Yeah.
And I think there are other interesting themes in the book too, but I'm just curious, how did you sort of define the characters in terms of like what type of athlete they are? So I think we pretty well said like, yeah, Smile is like he's the natural talent.
Yeah.
And Demon, he's the one that every ounce of success he has is because of an inordinate amount of real hard work and effort.
Yeah.
And he'll never even be as good as the natural talent who doesn't even try kind of thing.
Yeah.
What about Pecco? Because I also think he's not super interesting, but
I think he's okay. So I think, especially when he drops out, what we see is the natural talent without hard work.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is I think Dragon is hard work and natural talent, and that makes him the best player there is. And what Pecco needs to do is do harder work than him, which Grandma kind of puts him through in order to be able to beat him. And I think that's kind of it's not just a sports manga cliche, it's and it goes to your niggling doubts about the idea of natural talent sort of as well. And it's not just in sports, it's also in Dragon Ball and every Shonen Jump manga. The three themes are friendship, hard work, victory.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And it's kind of across the board. It's almost what they teach Japanese kids in life. It's almost like the American dream is work hard and you can be anything. The Japanese dream is friendship, effort, victory. And so I think for him, I think when he drops out, the whole thing is if he works harder than Kazama, harder than Dragon, he can beat Dragon because they both have the natural talent. So that's where I position him in my mind, because you see it when he drops out and he gets so much worse.
Yeah, and I think also there's a big part of who he is that he's got the natural talent, but he's kind of that lazy natural talent, right?
Yes.
Like he's maybe a bit spoiled or something because he was so good at such a young age.
He's addicted to all kinds of junk food, which is a big thing.
Yeah, he's like smoking and stuff. Well, when he quits, he smokes and stuff like that. But
yeah,
and he's very emotionally fragile and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, you referred to Dragon as having natural talent and working hard, and I just want to say, I think that's like underselling it a little bit. I mean, he's more than natural talent, working hard. He represents the athlete for whom the sport is everything. It is his identity. It is his philosophy, and it is his. Like, I'm sure there's a Japanese word for it, right? Like your reason for existing.
Yeah.
And for Dragon, that's table tennis. And I mean, he's got some of my favorite lines and scenes are with Dragon. Like he has this. I think he's talking to Koizumi. Like he comes to visit the school because like he saw Smile playing or something, and he's like, who is this guy? I think he sees Smile play Pecco or something. There's this, anyway, for whatever reason, he watches and he's like, oh, he threw the game. What's going on?
Right.
And so he goes and visits the school. I think it's Koizumi. But anyway, he's talking about the like not scientific, like the physical limit of reaction time is like 1/10 of a second in the human body.
Right.
And like he talks about how he's striving to bring his reaction time in table tennis as close to that physical limit as possible. I mean, like it's philosophical with him. It's scientific. It's everything. To him, so it kind of makes him potentially very shallow as a character, but ultimately we see like he's not a shallow character in the end. In the epilogue, I would say.
And he's not a team player, and he spends all that time in the bathroom before his matches, and he's missing out on team meetings. They're like, where is he? He's in the bathroom again, because that's where he stands.
Oh yeah.
He stands around in the stalls and the toilets.
Yeah,
and Kong he's interesting, and I think it goes to that magic realism that I was talking about before, because I mean, there's also, in addition to, I can't remember what point I was mentioning before, but there's like this whole scene with dolphins and whales where Pecco jumps into the bay and then he's like rescued by this dolphin in his mind, and we never see the parents of any of these kids that are training 18-hour days or hanging out in arcades or whatever. I mean, there's mentions of Smile's parents like twice in the whole thing.
Well, yeah, he has no father, and his mom works all day, and she's.
But this is one line, and we never see these people. And when they try to, I think the Dragon School tries to poach him, and they say, well, you'll have to discuss it with your parents if you transfer schools, and that's like the only. So there's little bits of stuff, but one scene that I really loved, which is magic realist, and also is, I kind of think, a key point of Wenge, is when they first arrive in Japan and they're up on the roof of the school. Pecco and Smile show up at this school, Tsujido, where Wenge has been hired into. They want to check him out. He's not there. He's up on the roof. So they say, well, let's just play a game here on the table while nobody's here. So they start playing, and Wenge on the roof can hear from the sounds of the ball. He can tell, okay, there's a chopper. He's got talent.
And a fast attack.
And he's playing he's playing against a fast attacker. He's playing at the attacker's pace. They can tell all this just from the sound of the ball. So we haven't seen this guy play yet, but we know he's a killer that's been brought in from China. And this is the funniest little bit that he's able to tell just from the sound of the ball from through 3 levels of floors. Exactly what's going on in this game. Like, oh, this guy's he's a Terminator kind of thing that's shown up. And so I think, but for him, his whole thing too is you want to play, and I think he says it a couple of times himself, is to play another Terminator is the most fun you can have, the most enjoyment you can get out of Ping Pong, because he's so good. He just wants to get beaten.
Yeah.
In that respect, he doesn't want to get beaten, so he gets forced out of the game because he's already been shamed by losing in Japan. He has to win to regain his honor, but he needs to. That's the only time he really feels anything, because, as I said before, he feels like he's slumming it here in Japan, and there's nobody his level to play against, and this is the only time he really feels enjoyment. And he can tell that when Smile is playing Dragon at the end, he's like, oh, Dragon must be enjoying this. And Dragon starts smiling during that match, and his teammates are like, why is he smiling? And only Wenge's Wenge's one that figures it out.
Oh, that whole thing in that second tournament in Volume 2 where, I mean, Dragon ends up smiling. The match between China and Peko.
Yeah.
And Peko's like, you taught me to fly.
Yeah.
And then they're just playing at a level, and Wenge starts smiling as well in that. Like, they all find the joy that Smile talks about.
Yes. Even
though, like, Dragon and Wenge and Peko, they all talk about being the champion. Dragon talks about playing table tennis almost to trying to approach that platonic ideal of what table tennis can be. And for Peko, it's all about being the champion. And for Wenge, it's about maybe, as you said, kind of like redeeming his honor or something. Right. But ultimately, they all end up finding the joy of the sport when they're kind of matched up against each other in that second.
Yeah, even, spoiler, but you can probably predict it's going to happen. Smile smiles in the last 50 pages in that match against Peko for the first time.
Well, there's a photo of him as a child.
Yes, as a child he smiled once that we know of.
Yeah. There's like 2 smiles that Smile does. It's just really some really beautiful, beautiful moments there between all those guys.
Yeah.
And I love that Dragon obviously is the quote-unquote villain, like he's the evil team, but he's so not.
No,
there's no like villain. I mean, he's the villain and Peko is the hero, and I think the author is obviously aware of that, but they're all just kids playing ping pong.
Yeah,
at the end of it.
Yeah. Reminded me of there's one panel where we see Dragon's training, and we get a shot of we haven't talked about the art, we have to get to it, but there's just a shot of his paddle, and there's blood on the handle right where your thumb meets the index finger, and it's just wow. Let's talk about the art, because it's something I want to talk a little bit about the symbolism too. There's a certain level, and that's kind of tied into the art. Like, it was really interesting to me that when Demon was kicked off the team for playing that unofficial match, and then he comes back a year later, so he was on the Taiyo team, the bald, no eyebrows. He comes back with the biggest pompadour you've ever seen on his head, and nobody really comments on it, but it's so. There's a few touches like that, and the airplanes symbolize Wenge and returning to China, or coming from China whenever he sees them. I also leading into the art, there's 2 panels maybe in the whole book where he wears these reflective, like, aviator sunglasses almost.
Oh yeah.
And he sees the reflections. You get the reflections of him looking at an airplane, almost longingly, at an airplane up in the sky, in these 2 lenses of the glasses. And they're 2 of my favorite drawings in any comic ever. Because there's like the fisheye distortion of the planes and the glasses, and he's looking at them, and it's like he wishes he wasn't here, stuck in this place. So as soon as I suggested we do this book, and as maybe at the time that I was trying to get out of it or something, or maybe right off the bat, you sent me an email with a comment about the artwork, and I can't remember what it was. It was really succinct what you said about it. Something about it being really minimal but messy.
it's so messy. So I don't know how to describe it. I'll just make it up as I'm going. I've got that email somewhere, but I'm not going to waste airtime looking for it. But yeah, it's like this guy, like at a glance, it's like, this guy can't draw. Like it looks like he's like an 80-year-old man with a shaky hand or something.
Yes,
like I don't
that's a
know
good
about,
description.
but like my dad's handwriting, right? This is because he's old. Well, not just because he's old. He's always been a bit shaky. But yeah, you get these kind of, like his lines are like, there's not a straight, clean line in the whole book, I don't think.
No, and he doesn't, even for buildings, he doesn't use a ruler or anything.
No. But everything is so bloody perfect.
Yes.
I mean, like people's skulls and their arms and their legs and their bodies are so, I mean, it's not photorealistic at all, but it's like if you had somebody go over it with an airbrush, it would be kind of thing.
Yeah. I think
not always, but
I think he became more consistent later in the book. I think especially early on, the first 100, 200 pages, you tell the characters apart by, like, Pecco's bowl cut or Smile's glasses. This is how you know which character is which.
Yeah.
I found that wasn't the case on the second reading, and maybe it wasn't the case later on as well. But I also think it's a trick. I don't think his art is really scratchy, as you said. It's almost like Charles Schultz's Peanuts line. He couldn't draw a straight line.
Yeah.
But it's super controlled.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I don't even know where to start talking about the art, because the art is amazing the whole way through. And there's hundreds and hundreds of pages. This is 2,000 pages, 1,000 pages total. But as I said before, it's a very fast read because a lot of it is ping pong and hundreds of pages of ping pong. And it's, in other sports manga, especially sports manga specifically, if you have a dramatic match between two players, there's a lot of thought balloons of people thinking, okay, I'm going to hit this here on this edge of my racket, and it's going to go there. But if he does that, then I have to do this. There's a lot of thinking. Now, the match is going for a long, long time. Like, it might be 20 pages or 150 pages or whatever. But there's a lot of thinking. This is not. It is constant hitting of these balls. It's so fast. And he never... When an artist has to draw a lot of scenes of motion in a comic, they often get kind of philosophical, and they find an approach that's the best approach. Like, it should be speed lines, or, you should show the contact with the ball. He almost, out of the tens of thousands of panels of ping pongs, he almost never draws it the same way twice. Like, sometimes you've got the ball in midair. Sometimes you don't see the ball. Sometimes you see the ball squished, maybe against the paddle, but that maybe twice, maybe twice in 1,000 pages.
There's like a microscopic view of the what do you call it? The little nubs on the paddle.
Yes,
anyway, there's it looked like carpet basically, but there's this one panel I remember somewhere early in the volume 1 where it's so zoomed in that every little strand of that rubber is like, you can see it all bending and deforming because the ball is crashing it. He's unbelievably creative in the ways that he's portraying the different moments of these matches.
And he almost, like, how often does he do that, the rubber close up? Once?
I think that's
twice.
Once. I mean, I think that, like, the ball actually, like, impacting with the paddle is like a few times, like a handful of times, or like over like literally thousands of panels. He does that, half a dozen times maybe.
Sometimes he'll cram 20 panels into one page, and your eye doesn't even know where to look because it's all this chaos going on, and that's deliberate. It's deliberately, you don't know where to start reading or to stop, and you kind of go in the middle or whatever. There's one of those pages where he's playing Kong in the end, and in the middle of all those ping pong panels, there's a panel of a balloon, like, your end is coming, you're flying back to China. It's just tucked in there very secretly.
Like, I mean, he inserts, like, thoughts,
Yeah.
not thought balloons, but like as you said, panels of different scenes where you see like the characters are kind of transcending the moment of the sport, and they're having a memory or a thought about something, and you'll get a couple panels of that.
Yeah.
I loved some of the sort of throwaway characters where it's like, oh, okay, like Pecco's round one match or Smile's round one match, like he plays this senior and just destroys them, right?
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is that the treatment of those throwaway characters, they're like the superstar of those pages.
Yeah.
So I forget, like I think it's the second tournament. The first guy that Smile plays, he's a senior, and you get all you get is that guy's thoughts. You don't get Smile's point of view. You get this throwaway character where he's like, "This is my chance. I'm a senior next year. Like, there's no way I'm going to play table tennis in college, but I really got to try hard. This is my last time to prove whatever." You get all his thoughts, and you watch him psychologically crumble as Smile just picks him apart.
Yeah.
By the end of the match, his thoughts are somewhere else altogether.
Yeah.
Which that's a little bit off topic of art,
That's
but
all right.
it's kind of it goes in with
the
creativity, and that nothing is kind of, he doesn't fall back on like his favorite technique.
There's no predictability about it. It's so unpredictable. And I'm just looking through my notes about the art. There's sometimes one thing he does towards the end a couple of times is a person's body will be still, but their arm, just the arm, will be this weird rubbery blur, Stretch Armstrong almost, but it'll be just like a blur of just the one arm. Or another thing that happened maybe once or twice, and it was shocking. I read it twice. Even the second time I was like, holy shit, is like, you'll have 4 panels on a page, and suddenly the third one will be someone diving for a ball, and it will look like a charcoal drawing by a Dutch impressionist or something. It just comes, and our limbs are all distorted and stressed, and it's just the strangest out of nowhere, and it moves so fast.
Yeah, and zooms in on stuff, like here's a mouth, here's a foot, here's the ball, and zooms out, like here's the whole stadium, not stadium, but like the gymnasium or wherever they're playing. Like, I mean, he's all over the place in a good way.
I like the way when when their sneakers hit the floor, sometimes you get this kind of flamey effect out of them. Oh, and we haven't mentioned that the sound effects are a part of the artwork too, because the sound effects are so effective and making you feel like you're watching a ping pong game. It's just a pack-pock, how they translate it. But sometimes, like, you'll see
I was going to say, it is translated.
You'll see the ball once in a panel, but you'll see the puck, puck, puck. So it's bounced 4 times.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much dynamism even in that. And twice he did this thing where he actually drew a player like 4 times in one panel. Clear drawings of him, as if you're watching like I don't know what they call that type of photography, but where he draws the ball 4 times. Or sometimes the ball itself is stretched out, or you never know what's going to happen, and you're whipped through it at breakneck speed. It's really astonishing. Oh, and
lots of reaction stuff too from people watching, which I think is pretty central to sports stories. Anyway, it's not unique to this, but and
at the end, we get the final. And again, it's that he has these advantages of working in comics, that at the end all the backgrounds drop away at one point during the match, and it's just white. It's the court and the 2 players. And there's seagulls flying overhead, which is again the whole flying motif. And
when those guys, in that second tournament, when those guys are playing each other, like the 4 guys, because Demon doesn't make it that far, but those 4 guys are playing each other, and they are transcending their surroundings. The surroundings literally disappear from the art.
Wow. So again, I don't know what. So second time, for some reason, it really even gripped me even harder. Anything else we want to say about it?
The first time I read through it, and it's kind of getting back into some of the themes of it, and actually this was something that when I was going back through it, I did a little bit of research, because my first time reading it, I was like, Smile particularly is really kind of not representing, like he's displaying sort of this Buddhist philosophy, and this is largely due to my own misunderstanding of Zen and Buddhism and stuff like that. But I mean, there is that element of Buddhist philosophy of flow, or kind of not flow, but like emptiness, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
And sort of just. I don't even know how to. I mean, it's Buddhist philosophy. It's very difficult to explain, even if you know what you're talking about. I mean, Smile just kind of is a brilliant table tennis player. He doesn't try to be. He doesn't strive for anything. And this is not really Buddhism, but it's perhaps Buddhism to somebody who doesn't really understand Buddhism. So yeah, when I sort of was doing a little bit of just Wikipedia type research and stuff, this impression that I had my first reading through didn't really hold up. But what kind of came out of that was, this is kind of a very philosophical book, and I think we've hit on a lot of those things. Like, each of these characters sort of represents a different approach to sport, and not even just sport. I mean, a different approach to whatever your vocation or hobby might be. And I mean, you could probably do an entire podcast just talking about this kind of theme and how it falls into Japanese culture, in that in Japanese culture, Japanese people tend to have a hobby.
Right.
A lot of them do anyway. And when Japanese people have a hobby, it's almost like at a deeper level somehow. You probably understand what I'm saying, because you've lived there as well. But I don't know if I'm communicating very clearly to anyone who might be listening right now. But there's a sense of the pursuit of perfection.
Yeah.
And that's not just in hobbies, that's also in work or whatever. And that's definitely something that comes up here. So I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot going on here. I mentioned nihilism earlier, like I mentioned Buddhism, and I think all this stuff is there. But yeah, the writer's not kind of saying any one of them is right or good or whatever. No. It's just they're all kind of there. Everyone's got their place. And as we see kind of in the end of the book, I guess, everybody, there's room for everybody to have those different approaches maybe. But I think rereading it a second time, I'm like, oh man, you could reread this a third time. And I think there's a lot philosophically to kind of get into in this book.
I think you're really right, because it's not about kind of not necessarily being specifically about ping pong, because as I alluded to right at the beginning, a lot of the matches we don't see the ending of. We don't see the final points. We don't see the final scores. We just hear, we get through half the game, 2/3 of the game or whatever, and then we see the result in the next chapter. Almost as that kind of stuff is not important, like there was an inevitability, or it didn't matter, or something like that. So again, I think in that's another respect where I think he was kind of sticking it to other sports manga, which would be like, let's see the final, let's see every point, let's see this point play out or whatever. He's just like, whatever. He's more interested in getting back to the characters and what they're going through.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it there.
Sounds good to me. I definitely would highly recommend the book, though, just as a final thought.
Yeah, find it. I think
it's... We haven't ruined it, spoiled it for
I'm pretty sure I bought these hardcovers, not hardcovers, but they're 2 omnibus editions, but I think they're on Comixology or wherever, so it's just definitely a must-read. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ping Pong is published by Viz. You can help Deconstructing Comics and all our podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics, and go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. If you're looking for some constructive feedback on your comic, send it to us and we'll critique it on our spin-off podcast, Critiquing Comics. Send it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. Next week, I'll be talking with New Yorker cartoonist Joe Dater about his hilarious and informative collection of cartoons called Ink. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.